This is the 14th session of Business Economics subject for first semester BCom. The title of the session is Increasing and Decreasing Demand. The title of the session is Increasing and Decreasing Demand. ಬೇಡಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿನ ಏರಿಕೆ ಮತ್ತು ಇಳಿಕೆ. So under this topic you are going to study these many contents. So you are going to study increasing demand, shift in demand, decreasing demand and shift in equilibrium. Let us recall what we have studied in earlier sessions. So in the earlier session we have discussed about the demand determinants. I believe that you know what are demand determinants. Let us recall. For example, we have stated that the factors which causes change in demand, you can call it as demand determinants. To study that demand determinants, we should know the concepts of demand function. Under demand function, we have categorized and studied in two methods. One is individual demand and one more is market demand functions. Then we have studied about determinants of demand. Determinants of demand is, the first one is price of the goods, price of the related commodity, income of the commodity, then substitutes of the commodity, then future expectations, change in season, weather, distribution of income, etc. Okay, this is the summary that what we have studied in the earlier session. Let us discuss what is increasing and decreasing in demand. Change in demand or shift in demand curve occurs due to change in the factors that we are assumed to be constant and equal under the law of demand. Okay, so let us just recall what is law of demand. Law of demand and ನಾವು ನೆನಪು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. How we state other thing being equal, other thing remaining equal, or ceteris paribus. When the price rise, demand decreases. When the price decreases, demand increases ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೇವೆ. And at the same time we have studied certain assumption. 10 assumptionsಗಳನ್ನು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೇವೆ ನಾವು ಅಲ್ವಾ. There is no change in taste, no change in preference, no change in price of related commodity, no change in season, weather, no change in size of the population, no change in income. ಹೀಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಇಫ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್, ಆ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಗಳು ಏನಾದರೂ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದರೆ then you can see there will be change or shift in demand curve. ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಕರ್ವಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಡಿಮಾಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜನ್ನು ಕಾಣಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ದ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಯಾವ ಥರದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ? ದ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ಟೂ ವೇಸ್. ದ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟೂ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸಿಂಗ್ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಇನ್ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್. ಚೇಂಜ್ ಹೇಗಾಗ್ತದೆ? ಒಂದ ಏರಿಕೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಳಿಕೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Let us see increase in demand. Increase demand says that by assuming there is no change in supply, the increase in demand leads to rightward shift in demand curve. Rightward shift in demand curve. Got my point? An increase in demand. An increase in demand says you a rightward shift in ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಕರ್ವ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಇನ್ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಕರ್ವ್ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತದೆ? ಇಟ್ ಶೋಸ್ ಅ ರೈಟ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಕರ್ವ್. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ us see the demand curve. See, this is a original demand curve. See, this is the original demand curve. ಇದು ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಕರ್ವ್. ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯಿತು, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯಿತು ಅಥವಾ ಟೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಿಫರೆನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಟು ದ ರೈಟ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಅದು ರೈಟ್ ಸೈಡಿಗೆ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸಿ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇಟ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟೆಡ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಡಿ ಟು D1. It shifted from D to D1. To being with DD is a demand curve with increasing income. You assume increasing income. The demand curve shift from D to D1. And at the same time, price may same. Price may remain constant or sometimes price may changes. Okay. If it is a case of change in preference, for example, people prefer much color TVs. Okay, color TVಯನ್ನು ಜನ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಆದರೆ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ದ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕಲರ್ TV will increase, so that there will be a rightward shift in demand curve. There will be a rightward shift in demand curve. Then the next one is increase in demand and change in equilibrium point. Increase in demand and change in equilibrium point. Dear students, you just see this diagram. You have seen that demand curve is this one. Increasing demand curve means rightward shift of demand curve. That's agree, you know this one. But one of the basic factor you should know that equilibrium point is a point where demand and supply curves tangents together. Demand and supply curves tangents together. Supply curve is this one. Okay, this is a supply curve where demand and supply curves intersects. ಈ ಎರಡು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರ್ಸೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತದಲ್ಲ, ಇದನ್ನು ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೆಯುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಓಕೆ, ಹಿಯರ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ಅಟ್ ದ ಬಿಗಿನಿಂಗ್ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇ ಈಸ್ ಅನ್ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಮ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ಇ ಈಸ್ ಅನ್ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಮ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. At the point of equilibrium, you can see what is an equilibrium quantity is demanded and at what is an equilibrium price. ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಮ್ ಪ್ರೈಸು ನೋಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಸಿ ಒನ್ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಮ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಟು. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ಅಟ್ ದ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಮ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ OE, at the equilibrium point OE, the equilibrium price is OP. Equilibrium price is OP and equilibrium quantity is OQ. Then because of increase in demand, demand curve shifts from D to D1. Because of increase in demand, demand curve shifts from D to D1. Where you can see that there is a change in equilibrium price. The price is also changed from P to P1 and quantity demand is also changed from Q to Q1. So this is the actual observation of this diagram. So remember, equilibrium point is a point where demand and supply intersects each other. When the demand curve increases, demand curves moves into rightward. ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಅದು ಬಲಭಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ಚಲಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು. When demand curve shifts from one place to another place, definitely there will be a change in equilibrium. So when demand curve increases, so you can say that the equilibrium point from OE2 it shifted to OE1. It shifted from OE to OE1. So this is the observation of the graph. Then we'll see decrease in demand. Other thing being equal ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂಥ ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ, so you can see that in case of decrease in demand, you can see that there is a leftward shift of demand curve. Demand curve shift into left side. Okay, demand curve shifts into left side. By discussing increase in demand, I told you change in demand may be because of the factors which influences on demand. But in case of decrease in demand, may be inadequate factors like rainfall or else some of the natural calamities or anything that may cause fall in the income of the producer. Clear? So this is decrease in demand. So this is a diagram where you can see that DD is a original demand curve. DD is a original demand curve. When demand falls, the demand curve falls into shift into the left side. Clear? When demand decreased, by the time demand shift into the left side. So by the time you can also say that the quantity of the commodity demanded and the price is also may goes for changes. Okay, so this is a one. Then the next one is a decrease in demand and change in equilibrium point. I told you, dear students, equilibrium is a point where demand and supply curve intersects each other. Demand curve and supply curve tangents at each other. So this is a point of equilibrium here. Here you can say OE is a point of equilibrium because of change in demand. So you can say demand is decreased, so it must fall from D to D2. So by this case you can see here is OE2 is the new equilibrium point, OE2. So here you can say P2 is equilibrium price, Q2 is equilibrium quantity. So this is a decrease in demand. Now we can list out or we can discuss what is the causes for change in demand. Change in demand may happen because of the factors of or determinants of demand. So here I have written expectation about the future price or price of related commodity. Other than these also you can write that price of the related commodity, change in fashion, change in preference you can write, and you can also write that change in season, weather. All these are the reason for changes in demand. So this is the reference of the current topic is concerned. You can refer these books or any books for the further reference. Thank you very much for your patience listening.